Now, this video I'm really excited about. This is the first time in the history of my channel that I've done a recorded kind of one-on-one sit down with somebody. And I have to say, it was rad. So I hope you enjoy this one. Let's get into it. Since founding the Nacelle company in 2017, my guest today has become a serious force in pop culture landscape. He's been instrumental in bringing this culture to the so-called normies through numerous documentaries and series, but he's also played a huge role in the resurrection of many toy lines from our childhood. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's my pleasure to invite to the channel none other than Mr. Brian Volk-Weiss. Brian, how you doing?
I'm all right. That's a great intro. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you hanging out with me.
Honor to be invited. I will never take that for granted.
Awesome. So you're a real busy guy. Nacelle company has just been firing on all cylinders for a lot of years. Like, what makes you tick? What's your thing?
What would you say you do here?
You know, it's an interesting question. I mean, listen, I assume, like most of us, I really don't know why I tick one way or the other. I have guesses, but I don't really know. I'm a huge Trekkie, and one of the things, if you're a Trekkie, that is kind of like the 10 commandments of Trekdom is, to seek out strange new worlds,
Right.
which has now become a cliche because that's the name of the show. But for a long time, it was just a part of the opening of every episode. I think that's ended up in my DNA. It's very important to me to just keep exploring new things that we haven't done before, new businesses that we haven't been in before. Now, we don't enter businesses to enter businesses.
Right.
But, once we started acquiring the copyrights for these toys, initially it was just about the toys. Then it was like, oh, we're making the toys, we might as well make the cartoons. Then it was like, oh, we're making the cartoons, we should probably make more toys. And really everything starts to feed upon itself. So I that's my guess at the ticking part of your question. And what do I do? I'm the founder of the company, and that's a permanent title. But it's funny, I never refer to myself as the CEO without adding the word current. I'm the current CEO. There'll never be another founder unless someone has a time machine. But God willing, there will be more CEOs of this company. And my job as the current CEO, I always say, and just bear with me because this will take a minute to explain, but I always say I have like an Indiana Jones job. And what I mean by that is, as I assume judging by your back wall, you have seen at least one Indiana Jones film.
Probably.
So, half the time Indiana Jones is in the jungle being shot at and, snagging certain artifacts. And half the year, he's a college professor with office hours and teaching freshmen.
Escaping out his window.
Exactly. That's the gray area between the two worlds. And that's kind of my job. Sometimes I'm in the field directing and, I'm in Calgary or Santa Monica or New York or Chicago or wherever, Japan, Brazil last year, directing. And I'm directing like any other director.
Right.
And then other times I'm in the office. I have accounting meetings. I go to HR meetings. I have a staff meeting every Monday morning. And I'm like any other CEO, I'm very lucky in that I own the company, and I think I get to do things that most CEOs wouldn't get to do, which is alternate between these two worlds.
So obviously you're a big fan of toys, right? You're a big toy collector. You're a massive fan of pop culture. Like, you have a passion for this stuff. Have you always been a toy collector? Did you have like that phase in your teens where you got rid of all your childhood toys and then you kind of reacquired them all, Indiana Jones style, maybe? Like, has it always been a thing for you?
You're close. Got a couple details off, which if you had them right, it would be a little scary. It would
Yeah.
be stalking me 45 years ago. So yeah, man, like, again, we really, you can go to therapy 7 days a week for 100 years, and it's kind of just a guess who you are and why you are that way. But
Right.
my one guess on this topic is I was an only child. I know there's some only children that like being only children. I did not.
Right.
And the only thing I can guess is it really bonded me to my toys in a way that if I had brothers or sisters, I don't know if it would have had the same impact otherwise. So I played with a lot of toys as a kid, as everybody does. Never really got rid of them. But I remember, and I feel very lucky that I do. By the way, I never threw out my toys. That my mom did that just fine.
Right. Yeah.
But I was in college. I believe I was a sophomore, and there was a comic book store near my dorm, and it was like 95% comic books, 5% toys. And I do remember vividly the first time I ever bought a toy knowing that I wouldn't play with it,
Right.
that it would just go on a shelf. I was a sophomore in college. Between that day and toys that made us getting greenlit, I had about 400 toys. So that was over the course of about, let's say, 20 years. I went from 0 to 400 in 20 years. Between 2017, which is when the show was greenlit, and today, you could add a 0 to that number to show you the impact. And this is something I did learn about myself through the process of making the first season of toys. The more I know about a toy or anything really, the more I want to have it and put it on my shelf. So for example, everybody's always very surprised to hear this, but I was never into He-Man. In fact, we almost didn't do He-Man in the first 2 seasons. I had to be talked into it.
Wow.
I never got it. Like, I'm like a spaceship in space with lasers kind of guy. I'm not like a buff, sword and sandals kind of guy. And while making that episode, I understood He-Man. And I got it. Now I have conservatively a 50 to 60 piece He-Man collection.
Nice.
So that's
so through the show, it gave you an appreciation of this line and you kind of got into it.
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly. Same thing happened to me. We do the show for Disney called Behind the Attraction.
Right.
My Disney collection, I would say, was kind of normal the day that show got greenlit. Now it is absolutely not normal. So it's an occupational hazard. And I know that sounds funny, but like, I'm kind of not joking.
Sure.
There are plenty of people at NACELLE that never owned a toy in their lives. And within 3 months of getting here, bought a toy, then another toy, and now they have a room full of toys.
And I think that RoboForce, you guys resurrected RoboForce. You obviously redesigned them. Now you got a cartoon coming, part of the NacelleVerse, but RoboForce is a classic example of that, where a lot of people our age were never exposed to RoboForce. It was G.I. Joe, Mask, Transformers, Masters of the Universe. Didn't really get into RoboForce, but now, since you guys kind of resurrected the line and retooled it for a modern kind of audience, we could talk about all of your documentaries and series all day. because you have things like Icons Unearthed. You have a lot of the Star Trek stuff as well with Gates McFadden. But in regard to, say, like toys and toy culture, how important was it for you to do a show like A Toy Store Near You? Because I know you really focus on those brick and mortar kind of mom and pop shops, and that's something that I always talk about. People need to find those stores, go support those stores, buy stuff from them, try to get out of the big box stores, because big box doesn't care about your toy habits. They care about selling pots and pans and comforters and things like that. So how important was that to you?
I mean, it was extremely important. I mean, it was so important. I don't know if you know this or not. It may have been forgotten by now, but the reason we did the show was to help make money and get more and more exposure for the stores during COVID.
Yeah.
That's why we did the show. It's always funny to me if somebody who starts watching the show in season 3 and beyond is always shocked to see the first season.
Yeah. Oh, it's a completely different landscape. Like the feel of it is completely different.
Yeah. I mean, the Billy Galaxy episode, I mean, I still get DMs a couple times a month telling me they're bawling their eyes out watching it.
Yeah.
I still get texts, people asking me, hey, what happened to Luna? She's the employee that, her husband got fired. She was dealing with some stuff. And like I said, that came out 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I still get DMs asking about her. But my favorite DMs and emails or whatever, however I get talked to, is, people being like, I love the show and I went back to watch more and woo, that's a bit different.
Yeah.
We made a very listen, I'm very proud of the first season. In retrospect, I think I made a mistake in that, I think at the height of COVID, everybody wanted to forget about COVID. And I made a show very deliberately being like, hey, it's COVID, everybody. And
yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, no shit. I can't leave my house. So it was, so that's as we went along, why we started focusing more and more on the toys. And obviously the owners, when they're not dealing with 100-year plague. So that's why we did that. But no, it's my passion for these stores. I consider Blast from the Past, which is the local vintage store in Burbank.
Right.
I mean, it's the closest thing I have to a temple or a church or a mosque, is that store. So yes, these stores are super duper important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got one of those too. It's like, I don't want to call it my neighborhood store, right? Because I mean, it's a little bit down the road, but they are my go-to toy store. They know me, I know them, they know what I like. If they get something in, they'll hit me up and be like, hey, we got this in. Like, that's how I got the G.I. Joe Tycho train set complete in the box. Was they got it in and they were like, hey man, you looking for this? Absolutely.
Nice.
So those stores are very important. And shop local, right?
Yeah. I just got that this year at an estate sale.
Very cool.
I don't know what you paid, but you probably want to kill me if you heard what I paid.
Maybe when we're done. You also distributed a show, a series that's very near and dear to me. I own a piece of season 2. That's how I became good friends with the writer, producer, director, and star. But you also distributed both seasons of Action Figure Adventure for Rob McCallum and Jay Bartlett.
Yeah, we did indeed. I love Rob and very, very proud to have any connection to that show. But that's his masterpiece. And I, as someone who also makes documentaries, I mean, I really tip my hat to him, literally, because it's an A+ series.
Did you see that he won that award for Mr. Dress Up? I was
super
proud of him for that.
Made me very happy.
Yeah. He came here to film my Joe room, my toy room for Planet Cool Stuff, his newest documentary series. And he got detained and it never happened. So yeah, pretty funny. So the big one, the big one that I want to talk about with you, the toys that made us. So this documentary series, I can tell you directly, it completely rekindled, it reignited that spark in me for the love of toys, these pieces of art, everything about toy collecting. And it made me get serious about collecting G.I. Joe again. So I have to personally thank you for that.
The show did the same thing for me. My
That's very cool.
G.I. Joe collection before that episode was greenlit, again, I probably had maybe 5 vehicles and 10 figures. I think I now have 98% of every single vehicle made in the original run, and probably well over 150 figures.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I had the flat. My G.I. Joe collection is literally an island in my collection room. So right when you walk in, I got the flag, I got every plane on it that could fit, a couple helicopters, and then the whole island is full of shelves, and it's it's my 3rd biggest collection after Star Wars and Star Trek.
very cool. Got a bunch of dollies, bunch of G.I. Joe dollies.
I got a few.
So this year at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm sure you got it over and over and over. One of my Instagram comments actually made it into the very beginning of the trailer, which I thought was cool. You guys announced the return of the toys that made us. Do you want to talk on that? Because I mean, I'm super excited about it. I know tons of people are.
I mean, it's the show that changed my life. It's the show that changed my company. And it's, I've had no more fun making anything else in my life. I look back on it. I mean, it's literally like a dream. I remember we shot the sales tape 8 years ago. I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. And it's the thing I always wanted to keep making more of. And, you know, there's a lot of people in between me just saying, let's do it and doing it. And, you know, it was really interesting. You know, for people like you and me, toys are everything.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, you know, not everybody is like you and me. So
What?
I know it hurts my feelings. So, you know, we had to wait for a lot of stuff to kind of click into place for us, for Netflix, for everybody. And then it finally, the all landing lights flickered from red to green, and we hit the gas. That's a cheesy cliche way of saying it, but it's just stuff takes time. Especially 2024 and even last year post COVID.
I was beyond excited when I saw that announcement for the return with 2 more seasons. So who picked the episodes for the 2 seasons? Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, you mad? What are you mad about? Jurassic Park?
No.
This is what I keep getting my balls busted over.
No. What's the over under of a possibility of Mask? And is there enough to even fill an episode for Mask?
Here, listen, there's not going to be a Mask in season 4 or 5. I can assure you of that.
No.
If we make more seasons, listen, man, I'd love to do Mask because it's a great story.
Sure.
And I believe it's coming. I mean, you know, it's like literally one of the funniest stories of all time. I mean, it's literally like somebody, and I know who these people are, by the way. It's not some random somebody, but literally somebody was like, you know, this Transformers thing is doing good. And someone else was like, you know, this G.I. Joe thing's doing pretty good too. What if? But here's the problem. Not everything is peanut butter and jelly.
No.
Sometimes it's peanut butter and lobster. Now, everybody loves peanut butter. Most people love lobster.
Not together.
Not together. It's fucking weird.
Right.
So, like, it's kind of what it is. It's this great idea, and it's coming back. Hasbro announced that, I think they did, I hope that I'm at this point, I sometimes forget what I know in confidence and what I know.
Well, they renewed their trademark.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to try again. And I think Street Sharks doing so well will help encourage that. But
yeah, and BMAC from Hasbro just posted some cryptic thing about mask. So.
Yeah, it's coming back. So that's the good news. The bad news is, I mean, it was a pretty big failure. It had actually a very similar life to He-Man.
Yep.
Came out of the gate super duper strong, crushed it for about 9 months, and then fell off a cliff.
Then
One of
became
my
a racing
favorite-
series, and
Well, yeah, but also I don't know if you remember this or not, and it always cracks me up when this happens because it doesn't happen very often. But they completely changed everything about what it was between season 2 and season 3, or wave 2 and wave 3.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's like, how exactly would that work? Like, you had all these people who invested in the first 2 who show up for the third one, and it's like, wait, they don't transform anymore?
now we're just racing? What are we doing?
It would make a great episode like He-Man, because it was just such a kind of wham bam, thank you ma'am, like random series of events that led to, in my opinion, a high quality toy, an incredibly complicated toy, and an incredibly, because of how complicated it was, expensive toy to produce.
Right.
And not only that, unlike G.I. Joe and unlike Transformers, which started small and got bigger, I mean, they went all out. It's an A for effort, but yeah, I don't know how soon we'll be doing Mask.
Yeah, it did kind of go the way of 87 Masters of the Universe, but I wanted to discuss that the announcement at San Diego Comic-Con this year about the return of the toys that made us. I know so many people, myself included, I'm sure you as well, have just been waiting and waiting for that show to come back, because like you said, like I said, it really reignited the passion in a lot of people. And so thanks for bringing it back.
Thank you, man. That's very kind. Yeah, it's been like living in a dream. Just the reaction to everything.
Lastly, I kind of wanted to hear from you about the NacelleVerse. So you guys brought a lot of stuff back, a lot of cool stuff, some stuff obscure, but still cool. And you created the NacelleVerse. How did that come about?
It was pretty wild. Only in America. This guy reached out to me who is like an agent for toy designers and creators. There would be some guy with a great idea, and he would set meetings with Hasbro and Mattel and everybody to try and sell it. So he called me one day out of the blue. He'd been calling me a lot, emailing, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. And, we finally did a Zoom. He wore me down, and he was like, hey, I think if we were working together, we could do some cool stuff. And then I was like, all right, let's try a consulting thing. So we tried it. And then literally the first thing he ever called me about was RoboForce. And we worked out a deal with the owner. And then as soon as we had the rights, I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, we can do this. Like, we own it. Like, we can do what we want.
Yep.
And with RoboForce, that was possible because it was a disaster initially. We're not doing that with Biker Mice. With Biker Mice, we're being very loyal to the canon and following that which came before us. But with RoboForce, it just made sense. And then, we announced that we attached The Rock, and then we had attached Ryan Reynolds to Biker Mice. And then we started getting a lot of calls coming in being like, hey, I own this. What do you think of this? I own that. What do you think of that? And we passed, we're still passing on probably 99% of what comes our way.
Right.
But we do have a couple announcements, hopefully before the end of the year, that will show vividly that the NacelleVerse is expanding.
That's awesome. And I have to say to you, as a person who's primarily a G.I. Joe collector, I kind of just refer to myself as like a Joe guy, but I got Transformers, I got Mask, I got GoBots, things like that. But all of my friends who are, you know, collectors who are more wide in scope always speak highly of the Biker Mice from Mars. Like the stuff that they pick up, they're like, man, this is rad. And so me just being like a Joe centered sort of guy, I still hear a lot of positive feedback about other stuff. And it, you know, I do have the Robo4 stuff, so I can speak to that, which is awesome. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, maybe I'm putting a bug in your ear. Maybe you've talked about it. You know, they had a really awesome Robo-Force vehicle.
They were called sleds, and we are aware of that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we'll just wink. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
Well, Brian, I have to thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sitting down and talking with me about all the awesome stuff that your company's been doing since 2017. I just want to say, you know, thanks for putting in the work and burning the midnight oil and giving us some great series and resurrecting some awesome Toylands.
Thank you for your time and caring about what we're doing. And it was a lot of fun chatting with you. Thank you.
It's the toys that made us.
Hey,
You know what? I can edit this out. What'd you pay?
paid $.
No, I paid like
In the box, everything. Yeah, they just wanted to go home.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this one-on-one sit down with the always awesome, always busy, always championing pop culture, toys, and overall nerddom, Mr. Brian Volk-Weiss. I want to thank you for being subscribed to the channel if you are, and if you're not, maybe hit the button on the way out. It's something free that you could do. Again, I'd like to thank all my channel members, and leave a comment below. Let's talk some toys that made us, Joe. Sure. And have an awesome day.